Hi, my name is Gabe Cook. I'm the director of the Debate Kansas City, and I will be playing the role of both negative speakers in this debate. The speech I'm about to begin is the first negative constructive. So, without further ado. In cross-examination, Isaac would lead you to believe that the only reason we're not going to Mars is because somebody from the administration or the heavens above, I don't know where, hasn't come down and told us we should go to Mars, that the money's there and the people could make it happen if only somebody as smart as Isaac were to just tell them we should go to Mars. What I'm going to tell you is that's not true at all. The reason we're not going to Mars is because it would be really expensive and it would break our budget and greatly harm our economy. I'm first going to start with the spending disadvantage, and then I'm going to go through the case. Let's begin with that spending disadvantage. We begin with subpoint A. The disadvantage is unique. Current concerns over the deficit are leading to cuts in spendings, specifically cuts in the NASA budget. Space politics in 2011. It's been clear for some time that the budget environment for the next fiscal year and beyond will be constrained given concerns about deficits. This has given another clue to how tight those budgets might be for NASA. The House Appropriations Committee released funding allocations. If that fraction holds in 2012, NASA would end up with about $17.5 billion, or $1 billion less than the agency's request. So the NASA budget is going down because deficits are up and spending is being cut throughout Washington. Subpoint B, we find the link, or the reason the disadvantage occurs. And that's because when we fund space exploration, it explodes the deficit. From Feng Hu, who is a PhD and space fellow at the Aerospace Technology in 2009. There are limited financial resources from the U.S. government, which is now struggling with unprecedented high budget deficit and costly ongoing wars. It is irresponsible to impose on the nation another Apollo-like huge spending space exploration. Given today's economic conditions, we must adapt a space exploration strategy that is affordable. Going to Mars would not be affordable. It's going to cost hundreds of billions of dollars. And we see the impacts come in subpoint C, that if we increase the deficit, it will destroy our economy. We begin with 1. If we fail to stop deficit spending, it will destroy the U.S. economy. From Rowe in 2011. Out-of-control spending is a matter of national security. Spending cuts must be made to avoid severe economic disruptions, both in the short and the long term. And we see, second, that economic decline will undermine solutions to everything from ecology, disease, famine, and oppression. From Silk, who is a professor of economics in 93. Economic slump has fanned the fires of nationalistic, ethnic, and religious hatred. Economic hardship undermines efforts to deal with environmental problems, drugs, crime, eggs, and other plagues. Growth creates additional resources and makes it possible to achieve such goals as national and collective security, environment, and open societies. So our argument is that you should value the U.S. economy before you should look to going to Mars. We need to get our house in order. And we have that in mind as we move over to the case, and we look at both the problem and the cause of the problem. The affirmative argument is that the space program lacks direction, and that without direction it's going to collapse. My first argument is that we have bigger issues, as the spending deficit disad indicates. We need to get our budget in order before we even consider adding new programs like, say, a mission to Mars. Our second argument is that space generally is a waste of money, and it's not where we should be devoting our resources. From Gerald DeRoot, who's in the Space Telegraph, February 29, 2009. Time has come to pull the plug on meaningless gestures in space. An expensive mission to the moon seems like lunacy, while terrestrial frontiers such as disease, starvation cry out for cash. In the final words of Eisenhower, who once said about Apollo that Americans, every rocket fired signifies, in the final sense, a theft from those who are not fed, who are cold, and are not clothed. Our argument is that we have hungry people, we have large deficits, we shouldn't be focusing on space. Now let's go ahead and look to the solution. The first argument we'll make is, why does it have to be the United States federal government? Why couldn't private industry or some other country develop space if it's really something that we need that bad? And our second argument is that a mission to Mars is going to have far too many challenges in order for us to think it's going to be successful. The San Jose Mercury News reported this in 2010. Even with billions of dollars and a firm commitment, Duggan shows just how challenging a Mars missions would be. After several months, oxygen levels inside the biosphere went awry. The homegrown food didn't provide enough nourishment. Relations among 8 crew members went from bad to worse. And that's in reference to an experiment that occurred in the biosphere from 91 to 93. We couldn't even make it through a biosphere here on Earth. How in the world do we think we're going to be able to have an actual mission to Mars? Now, finally, let's go ahead and look to the survival advantage. Our argument will be with the survival advantage that if we go to Mars and do space exploration, it will cause ecological disasters and war, from Conan, the global network against weapons in '99. We are now poised to plant the bad seed of greed, environmental exploitation, and war into space. And I will finish that evidence in my next speech.
So the first argument you make on the spending disadvantage is that cuts are coming to NASA's budget right now.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so we are decreasing space exploration right now.
Yes.
Okay. And your second piece of evidence says space exploration is expensive. Is any of that specific to a Mars mission?
It says Apollo-like, which is going to the moon, so I would guess going to Mars.
You didn't read any specific Mars evidence on that?
Unless you don't think going to the moon and going to Mars are analogous, and then I think I read evidence that is pretty analogous.
Okay. The next argument, let me grab my flows over here. Next argument that you make is that space is just a big old giant waste of money.
Yes.
Let me ask you that. Do you like your microwave?
Actually, I think the microwave has caused us to lose a relationship with food that we used to have. And even though even though it might seem like a modern convenience, I think in many ways it creates distance.
So you're anti the progress that space exploration has brought us, such as like microwave or the cell phone. I don't think those are bad for humans.
I don't think space exploration is needed to make progress.
But in each one of those examples, they are the reason.
Well, in one example, the microwave, I really don't think it's that cool. I don't think Tang was that awesome, and I could probably make it through my day without Velcro. So.
Well, several kids who can't tie their shoes are crying everywhere. Now, the next argument you make on the solution is that private industry can take over. Do you read any evidence on this point?
Nope.
Okay. The last thing, you make this argument that says going to Mars is going to equal exploitation. Mm-hmm. Now, what exactly, how is sending 2 or 3 astronauts to Mars going to increase exploitation? Is there anybody that lives on the red planet?
Well, in order to solve your advantage, they would have to.
Right, okay, so we go and live on the red planet. Why is that bad?
Because our evidence says that if you look at the way we treat Earth, the ecological destruction that we're presently causing, the terrible way that we treat people, and our proclivity to go to war, that we'll take that to the red planet and other planets. So
it would just be like Earth on Mars?
As soon as we get done destroying Earth, we'll go ahead and destroy every other planet we go to.
Thank you.